Good evening, everyone. It's Sunday night, and I'm here with Jacob, and I have a very exciting announcement for you. Is that we have all sorts of crazy, wild graphics that Jacob has put together, and I'm 100% here for it. This is awesome. Thank you, Jacob. Uh, I didn't even know this was coming until about 5 minutes ago. So,
I didn't either, but I wanted to play around with all the branding stuff, and I figured why not make something for Father Eric to play around with. So
yeah, this feels like EWTN, man. Do you know what EWTN is? Eternal
I
Word Network Television.
yeah, uh, that old nun who had her thing, right?
The saintly Mother Angelica.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, she was
She
not
has she been
somebody to be.
canonized?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
But I have a little spot in my heart, and you're allowed to do that. I have a little spot in your heart for people. So,
Okay.
yeah. All right, we've got Laura. Laura saying good evening. Good evening, Laura. Good to see you. We've got Casey asking if this is EWTN. Uh, Maybe someday, but not at the moment. This is just a couple of jokers on YouTube here. Um, as always, you are all welcome to hop into the chat. It is posted in the description of the video and in the chat. So you just go ahead and come on in and say hi. We're going to be doing this. And I am kind of hoping to do this just about every Sunday night that I can manage. Um, and actually, I'm hoping to navigate kind of this full time over to my channel. I'm kind of piggybacking off of Jacob's channel here, and so if you want to drop me a subscribe, I know that the link to my YouTube channel is in the description of the video on YouTube's on Jacob's, and I'll get together on the branding there and give it a fancy channel name, but it's just a bunch of computer code now. So anyway, throw me a subscribe if this is something that you want to be alerted to regularly.
Yeah, so
Uh,
this is a simulcast. So you're seeing it on my channel and on my Twitch channel and on Father Eric's channel. So if you're watching on my channel, on either one of my channels, and you want to continue watching, you want to make sure to go to Father Eric's because we only have him for a limited time. So,
mm-hmm,
yeah.
mm-hmm. Yes, very sad, but I've got to grow up and go on my own at some point.
I suggested he could have a permanent slot on my channel, not me. And I want to clear up something. I did not say Father Eric cannot talk about the Trinity. All I said was he needs to put a disclaimer that these are not Jacob's opinions. Okay, that's all I said.
I
And
just need that academic freedom to say things without disclaimers. Although I'd probably just put disclaimers on myself anyway. So, uh,
I'm
Michael,
pretty sure most people realize you're a Trinitarian.
it's a part of the brand. We've got it. We teach the kids. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. So it's pretty deeply embedded in our branding at this point. Not getting away from it. Oh my goodness. Oh my
Hey,
goodness. Why
Let
is
me
he
let me
half
take
cut
some.
off?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my fault. Let me take that off.
hi guys.
Hello, hello, Chad.
I'm driving, thus the darkness and
Ah,
no mask.
and no mask. Well, I'm glad that you're able to keep your secret superhero identity hidden.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I love this look. This is great. It's cool.
Well, I love it when you look at the road and don't crash. So uh, take that quick
Ah.
glance and come back.
So, what's this now? You won't be able to be a permanent fixture here on the Just Chatting channel?
Well, I'm going to migrate it over to my channel. Right, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
Build my own little brand. Jacob's probably, I mean, he's put all these fancy graphics together for me. But yeah, go out on my own, see the world, all that sort of thing.
Cool.
Now
Like
we
just
we
for tonight or permanent?
permanently. So there's been many time that I've wanted to hop on to Jacob's Bible study, but it's at 8 o'clock at night here, and I'm kind of a 9 o'clock at night, ready for bed kind of guy. So it's
Yeah.
just like, oh gosh, that timing doesn't work out. And then sometimes, like, I have no idea when he's just gonna hop in on just chatting. So one of my big things is, we're gonna get a time slot, and it's not gonna move, and it's always gonna be there. And I'm
Yeah.
all about law and order. I'm all about institutions because it's what I do.
Well, that's
So
weird.
yeah, yeah, gosh. Uh, so yeah, what have you been up to?
Well, I just went to my Sunday night commitment at the Detox Center,
Hmm.
and before that, I was raking some leaves with my wife, and before that, we had breakfast at a diner, and before that, we missed church, and before that, we were sleeping. But
Common
yeah,
story.
yeah, detox was good. Was it was weird. They for the so like they bring a guy. One dude comes in, and then another dude gets brought in, and the lady comes up to me. She whispers in my ear. She says, "He has a blood alcohol level of 0.28. So just you'll have to just like you just have to be patient with them." I'm like, okay, okay, and that was a bit of a train wreck, but it's not something you typically want to do. Work on wet drunks. It's not typically
Right.
helpful.
I have a rule that I won't do any ministry with drunks. So if somebody's like stopping me and like, Father, I need to tell you my life story, it's like, nope.
Yeah,
If you sober up and remember that you still want to do this, I'll listen to you, but you
yeah,
just can't
that's
do much, not when they're in
right.
that
No,
state.
it's very fundamental even in the AA work. You don't want to really work with wet drunks because they won't remember. You could really damage a future opportunity, and and especially in like a detox group setting where there's potentially going to be other people, you can start to get in like a flow state where you're really on a nice roll and helping, and then all of a sudden, dude starts to train wreck the thing, and then you just like lose half the room because they're entertained by the melee. So it's tough.
Yeah.
What have you been doing? How was your day? How was your day, Jake?
I had a really interesting day. So I actually went to a redemption of the firstborn ceremony. I don't think that's one of the seven sacraments.
No, I am unaware of a redemption of a firstborn ceremony. I've never done one. Uh, what was
Yeah,
that? Where
Never
did
heard of
where
it.
did you do that at?
at my rabbi's house. So
Ah, okay.
his uh, his daughter just had her firstborn son, and when you have a firstborn son, if I remember correctly, Jesus actually does that ceremony. He actually,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have
A
a
pair of
priest.
turtle doves or two young pigeons.
We use 5 silver coins.
Okay.
Yeah. um, so that was interesting. Yeah, and
No,
yeah,
no partridge in a pear tree.
I'm not sure where
Cool.
the 5 silver coins comes from. Uh, yeah,
About how long does that take, the
all
ceremony?
of 2 minutes. I mean, and then a bunch of people make jokes about, you know, the father always makes a joke about whether or not he's actually going to go ahead and um, pay the price or not. Whether he wants to send the kid back, and then like a rabbi tells a story or something, and yeah, so it's no, so Numbers 18 actually says that and their redemption money from a month old shall thou redeem them, shall be according to thy valuation 5 shekels of silver. After the shekel of the sanctuary, the same is 20 gerahs. So there are silver coins. You get 5 silver coins that you use for the redemption, and you find somebody who claims to be a descendant of Aaron, and you give him the 5 silver coins, and then usually what he does is he whoever's silver coins it is gives them whatever, like $20 for the silver coins, and then he gives the $20 to charity or something, you know.
It would be very small silver coins if it was only $20.
So apparently the price of silver has gone up. I mean, a set of Pidyon bands.
So
I thought 1 ounce was about $20, so I was imagining these are silver ounces. Poor Chad, he's breaking up.
Yes. So apparently, a set of 5 silver coins at Eichler's, which is where I get all my online Jewish supplies, is $289.99.
Yeah, it sounds a bit closer. If they're 1 troy ounce, it's like $24 a piece, and if they're heavier than that, and if they've got some kind of fancy engraving, you got to pay for that too. You know.
Well, these are apparently silver dollars.
Yeah, they're worth more than $1 now.
Yeah, I didn't actually take a look at the coins. Apparently, the state of Israel also created silver coins, but no, it looks like people use silver dollars because this other place is selling them for $250.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Now, Laura had a question for you. Hey, Jacob, have you heard about the latest Lord of Spirits about baptism, and did they record it after Father Stephen talked to you?
I got the impression that it was recorded after I spoke to Father Stephen. I did listen to it, and I mean, it's interesting. I don't know what you think of it, Father Eric, but he was trying to explain how baptism is similar to but different than circumcision. And because obviously he rejects the whole Protestant idea of, you know, adult baptism and believers' baptism.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know, so baptism is different from circumcision in certain ways, and they were trying to explain that. And frankly, I don't understand why they can't just let baptism be like Christian baptism have the same symbolism as Jewish baptism. Other than you guys only do it once. And when I was observant, I used to go every week at least. And some people go on a day every day, like to the ritual baths. So
the mikvah, right?
Correct. Father Eric's Hebrew is much better than I suspected.
That's one of the very few words that are stored away in there. But there was somebody built a mikvah in Fargo in like 1915 or 1920 or something. It was in like a basement somewhere downtown. I don't know. So yeah, it's I mean, it's really interesting. Aquinas will talk about the circumcision and the Jewish ritual washings and the sacrifices. He lumps them all together in a category called the sacraments of the old law. And so it's all one of those Christian typology things where you've got the foreshadowing and then the fulfillment. So if you're wondering why we can't just let baptism be the way it was, is because of that tradition. which,
It,
as a
it's
full
all
disclaimer,
Aquinas.
Jacob obviously doesn't agree with.
So you're blaming it all on Aquinas. I see.
Well, he probably got it from Augustine, or actually Origen. Honestly, like that probably comes from Origen. It might even come back even further. Yeah. Oh, Sam Adams, jump on. Tell us if Origen ever said that. You've actually read his stuff. I only get a little bit of it in the office of readings. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you got going on there. And I don't think that's a Catholic way of talking about it. I don't think the Orthodox would be that far away from us on that point. So,
Yeah, line of sight. Line of sight. Lord of Spirits is interesting, and now that Father Stephen's actually paying any attention to me whatsoever, like that his appearance on my channel in the past week has 1.2 thousand watch hours.
yeah, he's a really interesting dude. I just saw Sam Adams' comment. It's pretty funny.
He's
I
baptizing his daughter, apparently.
he's baptizing his daughter. Yeah, um, yeah. Full disclosure, I never listened to a single episode of Lord of Spirits. Everything I know about that, I've gotten secondhand. But yeah, I've seen him on Sam's channel, and I've seen it on your channel, and I'm like, this is a pretty interesting dude. I'd sit down and have a beer with him if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, that is a lot of watch hours. Like that's almost as much watch hours as my, well, since he came on, I got a bunch of new subscribers, and now my channel has gotten almost as much watch hours in the past week, like half as much as I have in the entire year. Lord of Spirits fans, they listen to a lot of YouTube, and I guess they, I don't know, yeah.
Well, you're inside Vanderclay's head too.
Well, it was interesting when you were talking to Sam. You were saying there were times when you're doing something and you think, like, explaining something to me or Sam or
Yeah.
you know.
That's that consciousness Congress right there. It's like I'll be doing something, I can't even come up with an example. I'll be like blessing rosaries or something. And I'm like explaining to somebody. It's like, yeah, they're blessed now. So you have to, you got to burn or bury them. But it's kind of funny that would also be the same way to disrespect them. But, like that's a funny thing. You got a U.S. flag, right? If you wanted to dishonor the flag at a public protest, how do you do that?
You burn it.
Right. And if you want to respectfully dispose of it, how do you do that?
You burn it.
You burn it, right? It's like context matters. Holy mask. Oh. I posted it on their Facebook page and asked everyone to pray for Jacob. Everyone should pray for Jacob and everybody and each other.
Yes. Have you ever been to an Orthodox wedding service, Father Eric?
I have not. I've never been to an Orthodox service. I've been to Eastern Catholic divine liturgies on a Sunday. And that's about as much. And a Chaldean rite during a weekday. But you didn't even know there was a Chaldean rite. So yeah. Yeah, so I've never been to the wedding ceremony, but I'm sure they did it up right.
Well,
according to the tradition.
Except for Constantine equal to the apostles. I actually asked Father Stephen about that. So he said they have a title equal to the apostles, and he said it in Greek. I think it was something like Eki Apostolos or something. And he said that it is a title given to people who caused mass conversions, because in that sense, they are like the apostles.
Okay. There might be a happier way to render that in English. You know. Yeah, equal to the apostles. I mean, there'd be a way to formulate that, you know. Talk about it being a missionary or even another. I don't know. I'm not going to bother trying fixing their wedding later. Constantine doesn't come up in our wedding.
There was another name of a martyr in there. Yeah, their liturgy. I mean, it was interesting, but the most interesting part I have to say was the choir, because as there was the procession and the priest would say things like there was a choir in the back that would be like, God have mercy. Like the priest would say, I don't know, some sentence, and God have mercy out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then I don't know if they do this during a wedding ceremony, but you'd have the Lord have mercy, 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 and they'll go 40 times on that. I've heard
I
that.
didn't experience that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
There
that
was
was
a
during
lot
their
of
Sunday.
repetition.
Yeah. So they like the candors just got to be like counting on their fingers to make sure they actually get up to 40. Because we do 6 in the ordinary form and 9 in the extraordinary form, and then we're done. That's the brevity of the Roman rite right there. But they'll just they got that different thing going on. Yeah. So anybody who doesn't know how this works, you're free to join in the chat. This isn't just going to be me and Jacob, hopefully. So you can find it. We got to pin the. Hold up here. We'll see how this is going.
It is pinned on my channel.
And now it is pinned on mine. Yes, so you can follow that link and you can join in the chat at any time. And as long as you behave yourself, we'll be very happy to see you here. And if you don't behave yourself, then we'll kick you. And so that's fair, I think. Right, so last night we had a
show, Father Eric.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping not to get kicked too.
Yeah. I feel that would be very, very ungrateful of me to do that. Yeah.
Well, I tried to buy you lunch, but that didn't work.
Yeah. Yes, that a common problem.
Yeah, so apparently when you wear a collar, like nobody's willing to bill you for your lunch.
Especially when you go to Mexican restaurants.
It was pretty good though. It was pretty good.
Yeah. I'm just you would have had a real fine steak at that other place, but it was closed at 2:00 in the afternoon.
I think it's Corona. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that place. That place really did get. And it wasn't so much like people wouldn't come. It's that they couldn't get workers after coronavirus. So yeah. Well, I regret to inform you that I did not get a deer this week. I went out early Thursday morning, sat there all day Friday and in Saturday, and that tiny little deer blind, and did not get a deer from it. So we'll see if I got time to go out again, but it's very sad. Didn't get the murder out of my system. It's good to. Well, I feel like every time I got a priest, I'm a little bit more like got a deer. I'm a bit more like an Old Testament priest, because those guys were like 1/4 scholar and 3/4 butcher.
Well, do you wear your collar out on the hunting gun?
No, I don't want to. I don't want to get it bloody.
Well, I'm assuming you use a rifle and you don't do the Joe Rogan, like he goes bow hunting.
I could do that if I wanted to. And the nice thing about that is the season is much longer in North Dakota. Um, so I could. And the my friend who has the land, he totally he'd lend me his bow and like teach me how to use it if I asked him. My dogs dragged a deer carcass home today, probably left by a hunter. There, I mean, it may be possible that the deer ran so far that they couldn't track it, but yeah, you take that deer home. No point in shooting something that you don't want. So very sad, very sad. That should have that deer should have been, you know, sausages or steaks or something. That's what it was placed there for.
Do you dress your own deer, Father?
Um, yeah. So I mean, everybody guts it, right? Because you need to get that done as soon as possible. And my dad, we are very novice hunters. We didn't do this until I was in eighth grade and we were living in Montana, and all my friends at school were getting into hunting. And I'm like, Dad, we should do this. And he's like, okay, let's try it out. So we don't really know what we're doing. We don't have that tradition handed on to us. Fortunately, our friend who owns the land actually knows how all this stuff works. And he says if he's got all of his gloves on and everything, he can gut a deer in about 2 minutes. And I believe him because he's done it a lot. So when we're with him, he knows how to hoist the deer up and to take all the meat off properly. And then you want to get the back straps because those are they actually make decent steak. And then the rest of it usually gets made into sausage. It's just not as high quality. And there were a couple fawns I could have shot, and I just wasn't going to do that. But you get really nice meat off of them, very tender. But
How old are they?
a fawn,
Yeah.
they'd be like 9 months old.
Oh, they're still babies.
Yeah. They're tiny. You get like 20 pounds of meat off of them, but it's all like you don't turn that into sausage. Yeah. I did not, Laura. I did not shoot any fawns. They were like the only ones that came in range, though. We had this wicked freezing rain Thursday morning. And so there was like an eighth of an inch of ice on every blade of grass. And you couldn't sneak up on a deer or anybody in those circumstances because it was just so loud to walk anywhere. So it was just a miserable time to hunt. But, a bad day in the field's better than a good day in the office. So
I have never actually been hunting, so yeah.
I
like fishing.
Fishing's good. Fishing good. And fish are kosher. The fish of the sea.
Actually, deer is kosher if you slaughter it correctly. It is a kosher animal.
Would I have to?
But you have to slaughter it. Yeah.
Do I have to slit its throat then to kill it?
Yes. And you're not a kosher butcher, so regardless of what you did, it wouldn't be kosher. Sorry.
Yeah. If I had a Jewish person in my house, that would not be something I would try and serve them. I'd be like, here's a salad. That's safe, right?
Salads are usually safe. Yes. Yeah.
No bacon bits.
Yeah, I mean, people who are really strict on their kosher, like they check their salads for bugs. So, like, if you serve spinach and spinach are known to be infested with bugs, like I have actually been to I have this rabbi who he's a kosher supervisor. He's in fact kosher supervisor for most of the kosher food, certainly in Los Angeles, but like because of Los Angeles, like the food he supervises ends up in like basically all the kosher food in the world. And I've been to his house where he individual leaves up to the light, no bugs, no bugs.
I mean, I'm not fond of eating bugs either, but you know, good on him, right? Good on him to make the effort. Yeah, makes the whole "don't eat meat on Fridays" thing seem a lot easier.
So, Father Eric, while I have you here, um, I should probably ask you more questions about what you think the future of this corner of the internet should be. What do you think, Father?
Yeah, you know, I think the Bridges of Meaning Discord server was aptly named. It's a bridge to participation in the world. It's maybe training wheels. It's maybe answers. That's what I see it as. You know, there's really no way to get a sacrament virtually, right? That you always need to have the people present to receive a Catholic sacrament. With the very strange exception of marriage by proxy. But that's a very strange exception. And just so you know, there's no such thing as consummation by proxy. So at least we don't have to worry about that.
So, what are the situations for marriage for
It
proxy?
almost never happens, but we have it on the books. It might be something like, you know, Joe and Becky have their wedding planned for June, and all of a sudden in January, he gets called up to go on a tour of duty somewhere. We'll say he's United States military, and they really want to have that day be special because that's the day their grandparents got married, you know, 70 years ago or whatever. And so Joe could be over in Iraq, and Becky would be there, and somebody would make the wedding vows on Joe's behalf, and you'd need to have a whole bunch of permissions and paperwork to get that done. But it would be considered a valid sacrament. But obviously, yeah. So anyway, it almost never happens. And honestly, in terms of the church's sacramental theology, marriage has all the weirdest stuff in it. So yeah. Other than that, you always have to have the people there, and you couldn't have two proxies. You need at least one of the parties there.
I'm just imagining a wedding between two people who are not, they're both proxies for other people.
No, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So anyway, that's trivia of canon law. So basically, yeah, I think local communities, I think engagement with people, I really think that's what we want to be. That's what we want. That's what human beings need. Now, there are cool things. There are cool things that the internet is capable of doing. And so, PVK talks about Jordan Peterson as the unauthorized exorcist, that he really seems to kind of come in and smash up people's materialist framing, which I think is great that he does that. And that's something that can be effectively communicated over the internet. And while I said that sacraments always have to be done in person, I've heard of exorcists doing kind of low-level deliverance sessions over Zoom before. So it wouldn't be like the full sacrament or the full ritual of exorcism, but they could do low-level deliverance prayers, and it's actually effective. So that sort of thing is useful. And then, coordinating with people over a large span of body, that's something that could be usefully done over the internet. But I just don't think that YouTube and Discord can provide that much body to something. So that's just kind of my conviction here. So, I'll continue being around and doing stuff, but the sort of body that all of these virtual means can provide is not a substitute for gathering together in a congregation of some sort. Local communities, local connections, people that you can actually talk face to face. That's why, things like Thunder Bay and the Chicago meetup, that those were all just so excellent because we finally got to see these people face to face. And wow, he really is tall in life, as he says he is. So, yeah, I think the worst thing for this little corner of the internet is just incessant navel gazing about this little corner of the internet. And what made this little corner great was talking about cool people and their ideas.
Okay. Yeah. Has Bishop Barron moving closer to you in any way affected you, or is it not really that much closer?
Yeah, not really. No. So he's in the same region. So like Bishop Folda has an opportunity to rub shoulders with him. When we go down to the big Steubenville conferences in Rochester, where he's bishop, I'm sure, he'll be able to make an impact there. But really, Winona Rochester is its own particular church, and the Diocese of Fargo is its own particular church. And it's not like never the two shall meet, but it's not, it's just two different programs. I got a few friends down to that diocese. So if I ever bump into them again, I'll ask him how it's going. But he seems to be, I don't know, he seems to be digging in. Like if his social media feed is giving us an accurate picture of reality, then he's going around and he's doing his job, and he seems to be enjoying it, as far as I could tell. I don't know. It's hard to tell on social media, though. But a little diocese, compared to like southern Minnesota and Los Angeles are two very different places. So he would really have an opportunity to be a little closer to the ground there, I think. And they actually had a Catholic cemetery that was vandalized on Halloween. So he went out there and reconsecrated the place, which would be pretty, because I guess the kind of vandalism they had was like a satanic vandalism. So it wasn't just, garbage cans and beer bottles, but that sort of thing. So, yeah. So anyway, he seems to be digging in.
I was talking to somebody, and you would know this better than I would, but he kind of thought that, Bishop Barron being moved to Minnesota was kind of like they were shipping him off to nowhere, whereas, in Los Angeles, he was more of in the thick of things. And I was thinking, well, here he was like a
auxiliary bishop.
Yeah, auxiliary bishop. And there he's the actual bishop. Mm-hmm. So it seemed to me like it might actually be a step up, and I don't know enough to really know.
Yeah, so properly speaking, it is a step up. That being the bishop of your own place is a higher office than being a helper bishop to another bishop. Now, whether or not going from LA to Winona Rochester, a very rural diocese, is actually a demotion. It could certainly look that way. But the thing is that he got really popular on the internet. So, like if you actually wanted to take his star down, you'd have to like muzzle him or something. Because he's just going to move his studio to Rochester, and I'm sure he's got the money to set up another little studio there to record his videos. And
right, and here, I mean, he wasn't actually in Los Angeles; he was in Santa Barbara, which is a good, at least hour, more like 2-hour drive from Los Angeles. So, as auxiliary bishop, I don't know if that's how like Santa Barbara always has its auxiliary bishop, because it's a pretty big community. I mean, if it wasn't so close to Los Angeles, I could imagine it was it would be its own diocese, at least, I guess, or I don't know how these things work, but yeah, it was. Oh, so part of the brands thing, there are these background music. Uh, if you did decide you wanted to have background music, you could do that. Not sure I recommend them. Um,
Enough of that. That's silly.
this is as close as you get to being the dancing priest.
Oh my goodness. The greatest. Oh, you get so tired of wedding receptions like that. You get so tired of wedding receptions, and it's like, unless I know a lot of people there that I need to catch up with, like once the speeches are done, I say goodbye to the groom, I say goodbye to the bride, I say goodbye to their parents, and I'm out of there because I'm not there for the dance. That's one of the benefits of being a priest is that nobody expects you to dance. Because I'm really bad at it.
Well, I am guessing you were not a fan of the viral video of the dancing priest during mass.
Let me show you. Let me show you liturgy here. Let's get some liturgy going. I'll figure out another way of utilizing all of these fancy tools here. So we've got where are you at? There we are. Okay, let me see. And then what is this? Picture-in-picture layout.
Well, you haven't actually. So when you click on present, you have to choose share screen, and if you want to include sound, there you go. Okay, there.
That's liturgy right there. Oh, look at that right there. Nice. That is the end of a solemn high mass for All Souls Day. So that's a priest of the priestly fraternity of St. Peter, whose name escapes me at the moment, and I was serving as a subdeacon, and I was holding the last gospel for him from your favorite gospel, the Gospel of John. And that's what it should look like. Note the lovely Roman vestments there. You don't see those very often anymore, but yeah. So anyway, that's what I think about the dancing priest.
I figured. By the way, people, if you want to vote which background you like better, I gave Father Eric a choice of two of them. I tried to find things that you already used on your channel. I have an ambulance going by.
Yeah. And that's funny because you found those from that Holy Week of 2020 when I was live streaming the liturgies from my YouTube's account. And then my boss, Father Phil, was like, "We should do more of that." So I spun off their own YouTube channel after that. But I did pick those photos for the thumbnails. So
I met Father Phil.
no, you met Father Dale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you would not mistake the two of them if you put them next to each other.
Father Dale was much shorter than you are.
Yep.
But you're pretty tall.
I am. But Father Dale's the shortest priest in our diocese.
Do you guys keep is there
No, you see him at ordinations, and Father Dale's standing next to Father Wilhelm, who's about 6'5", and it's just like, gosh, awesome to have all the boys together. Yeah. It looks like Zach likes the Pieta, and Andrew likes the Dies Irae, the sequence for All Souls Day and funeral masses. But I don't see that in the. Oh, but I could add my own music. You didn't say that we could add our own music. So that might be something coming.
Your brand tab. The only thing you have to be careful about is copyright.
Copyright. Yeah.
Yeah. Copyright gets pretty crazy, especially on YouTube.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the orange I picked because on your channel you just had a lot of orange, but you can change that to whatever you like.
Yeah, it's people might get the wrong idea if they saw all that orange,
Oh, right. Orange is the color of Protestantism, isn't it? I
It
didn't
is.
even realize that.
Oh, you're talking about my how to read the Bible thumbnails though, right?
I guess I
Yeah,
just looked at your channel and I just saw a lot. Yeah, I saw a lot of orange, and I saw the Pietà, and I saw the Last Supper, and I figured, okay, so I will go ahead and so yeah, so on the live stuff, and that's actually, so if you look on the live tab on your channel,
Mhm.
so the picture you have of yourself is um, I don't know what you call this thing that I made into your logo, but like that's what I kind of found. You know what
Mhm.
I'm talking about? And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Do you know
Khal-
Dr. Khalil and Danny?
Khalil and Danny got
Yes.
into Twitter trouble for questioning the Trinity this weekend. I thought Elon Musk was going to get rid of all of the trouble.
So I don't know if you know Dr. Andani. He's been on Sam's channel a few times. He is a professor of Islamic studies, and he is an Ismaili Muslim, and he knows a lot about Neoplatonism. So
Mm.
I have been trying to wheel him into my channel more as much as I can, because I've been trying to find more allies in my crusade against the Trinity.
And on that count, the Muslims would be right there with you, huh?
So I have this theory that God created Islam as kind of a counterweight to Christianity. And like, this one's a little too hot, this one's a little too cold, and Judaism's just right.
Hmm. Well, both of them have spotty history with regard to the Jews, so uh, I
Doc, Doctor and Danny might disagree with you. I mean, so yeah, right now being a Jew in a Muslim country is pretty much impossible. That's my uh, certainly been the experience of my family. And earlier there were problems being Jewish in Christian countries, but look, I have to say the Hindus have treated us the best. The Hindus and the Confucian, like, although what happened in not as much in India as it happened in China was like the Jews just assimilated, like the Jews of Kaifeng. Um, have you heard of the Jews of Kaifeng?
is that a band or?
So there's a city of Kaifeng in China, and I thought you would find this interesting. So a Catholic missionary went some, or maybe he wasn't a Catholic, it was a Christian missionary, went about 300 years or so, went and saw the synagogue there. And the rabbi, he was basically the last guy who knew any Hebrew. And so he had become the rabbi, and he was getting pretty old, and he was literally the last guy who knew Hebrew. So he offered the position to the missionary of being the rabbi of the synagogue. And the missionary's kind of like, not sure it works that way.
Oh, was it a Jesuit?
I I don't know. the history is pretty interesting. I read there's a lot of people interested in it, and for some reason China's decided to create a whole museum about how these Jews assimilated and became Chinese like everybody else.
Everybody should become Chinese.
Yes. Oh, people have been really, really angry at the latest Concordat. Have you heard about this?
I have. I happen to follow Catholic news, sometimes too much and sometimes to my detriment. So, yeah, I have.
I'm
Cardinal,
guessing
Cardinal Zen, who is somebody I admire, is not a fan of it. So he's kind of my. And then I do have a Chinese friend who's a priest, and he's not a fan of it. He's quite certain that when he goes back to China, that his passport will be taken away, like basically on arrival. So yeah, it's a sad situation. I don't have all the facts. I don't know what call I'd make if I was in the big seat. And it's real easy to be a critic and to just tear things down and ask questions. But it seems like they're selling the people for nothing and making no profit by the sale. So that's what it looks like to me.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know much about it. I just saw some right-wing commentary, which included some Catholics saying things that were not very Catholic about the Pope.
I really think that disagreeing with the Pope and ignoring him is a fine Catholic tradition. I mean, have you read the history of the Middle Ages? Right, like they were ignoring the Pope left and right. That was their favorite thing to do.
Well, these people weren't ignoring the Pope.
Yeah. I long for the good old days when there would be a Pope who would live and die for like 6 months, and your average peasant wasn't aware of their existence. That's tradition right there.
So, do you guys? I know that in Eastern Orthodoxy, they pray for their bishop and then whoever their patriarch is for their autocephalic, whatever it is. So, do you in your services? I'm guessing you pray for your bishop. Do you also pray for the Pope?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's always fun because you kind of get into autopilot on that part of the names, And so when I'm in another diocese and I'm celebrating Mass, I've had it where I'm like, together with Michael, our Pope, and Francis, our Pope, and Michael, our Bishop, and all the saints. You get the yeah.
So when you're celebrating Mass in a different archdiocese, you
pray for the local bishop.
Pray for the local bishop, but not your own bishop?
No.
Okay. Because you are kind of aren't you kind of bound to your bishop anyway?
I am.
Okay.
But when you're in somebody else's diocese, you pray for the bishop of that place.
Okay.
So
how often do you end up celebrating Mass in a different diocese?
Well, I mean, if I'm traveling somewhere, so like when I was up at Thunder Bay, I can celebrate Mass at the cathedral there. The bishop was not there, just the rector. Yeah, Nathaniel says it's hard to do a part of the liturgy without doing from the top. Father Eric. Yeah. I said Michael, our Pope. Have you ever heard of Pope Michael?
No, but I'm guessing there was a Pope Michael.
No, he was elected in a conclave that included his mom in Kansas.
Oh, I've seen that documentary. Yes. I
Oh
have
man,
seen that documentary.
talk about a Freudian slip there.
Yeah, his mom and his dad were like 2 out of the 3 people who elected him Pope.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, yeah. So anyway, he was reconciled with the church on his deathbed. So
Oh, okay.
we
Yay.
got him. Ah,
I didn't realize he had passed away. God have mercy on his soul.
God have mercy on all of us.
Amen. Amen. Pope Michael.
I thought I had heard that story. I don't know.
David Bowden. Yeah, apparently he died in August.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had not heard that he passed away.
Yeah. So anyway, all sorts of fun stuff going out there. I'm bringing into the church people who are baptized old Catholics. You ever heard of the old Catholics before? They split off after Vatican I, and they said that the papal infallibility and papal supremacy was against the tradition. And so we actually they had bishops that split off with them, so we recognize their Eucharist and their priesthood. Um, but they've gotten funny because they've started ordaining women, but they're like celebrating the traditional Latin Mass. It's just it's a different universe. So anyway, these guys that I'm bringing in, uh, I don't know if they'd technically be sedes or not. I'm not going to dive that deep into this. Sede vacantis, believing that the chair of Peter is vacant. Um, so yeah, I get to. So I gotta figure out if they were ever confirmed, and if so, if that confirmation was valid, or if we need to do it again. Um, yeah, Andrew, traditional Latin mass celebrated by a woman. Wow, yeah, it's you can you can find just about anybody out there.
Yeah. People, there's 23 of you watching. And you guys should click on the chat and show up.
Oh,
And
well,
you guys should click on the chat and show up. Well, I am muting you, Paul, until you turn off your YouTube. Okay. So we have Rick and Paul.
Rick does have a face.
Yes, that is actually Paul's imaginary friend, Rick.
You should put on your motorcycle helmet. You can be the steak. And Wiley.
We can't see Wiley. You are still echoing, Paul.
I don't know why.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah.
I shouldn't
Well,
be
how you
echoing.
doing, Pastor? Oh, he's
I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah. I'm good. So there's Wiley. He's got a ball.
looks like a happy dog.
He's a very happy dog. He's a very happy dog.
Yeah.
We caught you on a Sunday, Paul.
I know. I'm over at Rick's picking up a chair.
Is this for your new office?
Yeah. We'll see if it's better than the one I got from the homeless.
Very good. Did you have a good Sunday? I was a little busy today. I scheduled altar server training, so that I had a little extra work, but I still got my nap in. So
Sunday was very normal. Sunday school, beating up on Jacob in the Sunday school class, and then having the church.
Hello.
Yeah, it was good.
very good, very good.
Who else we got in here?
We've got me and Jacob,
Bristol.
and we've got Bristol, who just arrived. I don't think we've ever
Yeah.
met Bristol.
Yeah, I'm quite new here.
Okay. How did you? Just curious. How did you find this chat?
Oh, I'm just looking at Christian live streams and stuff. I wanted to join you guys and talk to you, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a Protestant pastor, a Catholic priest, and a Jewish fella here, so you could get an awful
Nice.
lot of different perspectives. So, what's on your mind?
Well, my mind is I'm always going fucking niggers, man. I'm fucking going.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Golly.
You know,
Golly.
people are, yeah. I told you about my Bible study that got flashed.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I saw the profile pic. I saw the names.
Yeah.
And you were kind of. Is there a way to like not let them stream?
The only way I know is requiring people to turn on their video before they come on.
yep.
But I did check. I mean, he was verified with YouTube. I considered kicking him from the studio, but like,
You know, this is the only way I'm going to learn, right?
yeah. Now I have to teach you how to
be suspicious of strangers on the internet.
how yeah, and you're gonna have to blur the thing on during the stream on your channel afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I'll say a little exorcism when I go to bed tonight, and it'll all be good.
I mean, the thing is, it's you have to wonder, you know, what kind of life is it that makes you feel that's something you want to spend your time doing?
Yeah,
I don't know.
You get off and it's like, oh yeah, I did that. It's like, yeah, okay.
You should be
There
done
you
with that
go.
by about 15. By about the age of 15, you should be done with that.
Casey, do any of us know you?
Oh yes.
I am on Bridges of Meaning. I go on there. I used to go more, but changed jobs, so I don't have as much free time. But yeah, I go on Bridges of Meaning a decent amount. I think I've been on Paul's stream a couple times when he did the random streams. So, hello.
Hello.
My
You're in the
roommate
dark.
is inside sleeping on the couch, and it's about 33 degrees outside. But just, it's fun to hang out outside sometimes. You know, when you live up here in the north, you get used to it being nice and cold. So it doesn't bother me that much. But I've really been enjoying the streams and the videos, Jacob and Father Eric. They're pretty good. I watched your last stream you did, Father Eric, and I watched your conversation with what's his name, Stephen DeYoung, Father Stephen. That was good. I enjoyed it. And I am Catholic too, but I enjoy listening to you expound your viewpoints upon things such as the Trinity. It's very interesting.
As iron sharpens iron, so one brother sharpens another.
Sure.
That's the hope, anyway. That's the hope.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how many people are interested in debates about the Trinity. It's like, does it? Well, I believe, and it's because I believe that theology really matters. I believe that it is something very important, and does affect your life. But I think a lot of people don't actually view it as something that's that important and vital in their daily life, you know? And so it's one thing to listen to me argue about how important what I would say is monotheism is to your, being a human being that actually lives a good life. But yeah, people like to hear me like talk about hypostases, and it's like, or is it hypostases?
It's Greek. I don't know how to pronounce it.
You don't do mass in Greek, Father?
I do not. Like, I could barely squeeze it out in Latin if I have to, but it's not even the same alphabet. Yeah. All right. Mark's coming in with some hot takes here. Lots of people like to know things that there is no reason to know. You can just participate without all that stuff. You know, there's a somewhat controversial 20th century theologian that would agree with you, Mark, or that you would agree with him. It was Father Karl Rahner, a Jesuit, mid 20th century theologian, who, in his work on the Trinity, said that the main problem with the way the church talks about the Trinity is that it can't possibly have any effect on their lives. And he was writing this in kind of the mid 1950s there. And that's been a point that I haven't been able to get rid of. There's a lot of Karl Rahner I don't like, but how do we find this present this Trinitarian theology? How do we actually bring that into your world, into your life? And I think there's ways to do it, but yeah, it's complicated. Hypnosis. Yes. The hypnoing. So yeah, I think it has a big impact. It's just not something deep to debate. I like the three aspects approach, though. Yeah, because everybody knows that you're a Neoplatonist. You can hop on anytime, Mark.
I am actually going to hop off for a little while. I plan to be back, but I need to do some stuff. You guys have fun.
May God bless you and your stuff.
Oh, it is cold out.
Yeah. I spent 2 nights this week in an elevated deer blind, so I know about cold.
I don't envy that. Although I do envy you going out and hunting, which is something I haven't done in a while.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, so what'd you get up to today, Casey?
Well, I am a bad Catholic, so I didn't go to mass, unfortunately.
Oh no!
I have been helping my parents renovate a house that they bought. My aunt and uncle got kicked out of their house. The landlord just said the contract's up. They were month to month, so it's like one of their kids was moving in there or something, so they kicked them out, and they needed a place to live. So my parents bought a house, and now we're renovating it, basically. So we tore out all the cabinets, tore up the flooring, cleaned up all the walls. We're gonna paint soon, and yeah, just tearing the whole house apart. So that's what I've been up to this weekend.
All right. It's good of your parents to take care. You said it was your aunt and uncle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're about 70.
Yeah.
My uncle's 70, my aunt's 66 or something. So yeah, they're basically just living on Social Security. So they wanted to help them out by doing that, which I thought was nice of them.
All right. I'm sure it's not 33 degrees in South Carolina right now, Mark, is it?
No, it's quite warm. We did have really cold temperatures. Oh, it's not quite warm. It is in the 40s. It's gonna get cold tonight too. I don't know what's going on. It's still early in the season to be this cold. It was real cold in October. But how dare you call me a Neoplatonist, sir? That was such an obvious troll just to get me in here. Now I'm like, all right.
Mission accomplished, baby.
Yeah, I can't even. Yeah, what's this deal with the Trinity? Takes like 3 seconds. Like I don't get it. It's just
All
three
right.
aspects of the same thing. Problem solved. Move on, and keep that in mind in your daily. Like okay, right? It's still the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay, 3 aspects, same ideal. Not an issue. It's not. It helps sharpen your ability to hold different perspectives. Right? If you want to go all four cog sci on the whole thing, right? That's it. Problem solved. That's the religious side, the four cog sci. Everything's done. There's no room for debate. It's really easy. This is why I get upset. It's like, this stuff is easy. You're making it hard. It's not hard. None of it's hard. It's all you have to know. You don't need any more.
Well, that's the Trinity in 30 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. 3 aspects of the same. I'll think about that, Mark, and I'll give it some serious thought to figure out if that's heresy or not.
No. We talked about this before. I think the way Vervaeke talks about aspectualization is useful, and that's what I mean by aspects, right? Which is roughly to say the relationship you have to the Creator or the ineffable or the highest or God or whatever the heck you want to call him this week. Doesn't really matter, right? Is that it is enchanted, right? It has 3 perspectives that you should keep in mind all the time to the best of your ability. Like you can only really hold one perspective at a time, right? But you need to consider everything in those 3 aspects all the time. And so it's not just the Creator. It's to train you to be able to do that, to be able to aspectualize as such.
Huh. Yeah, I just want to say good night, Emmerich. Good to see you. He's a friend, a local friend here. Yeah, 3 aspects.
You have
Yeah,
friends?
I'll
What's that
I
like? How much does that cost? I don't have any friends.
just time and attention, Mark.
I don't have any of that. I'm too tired.
Oh, very good. Now, Mark, here's a question for you. Do you have any deer that live near you?
Deer, like the animals that you can shoot?
Yeah, I didn't get a deer this week. I was out for 3 days, but it was so cold that the deer were all hiding from
I
me.
don't know. I don't know where they live, but they hang out at the pond constantly. So I don't know where they live, Eric. I haven't tracked them down. I see them
Okay.
all the time, like all the time. And I'm not usually up early enough in the morning to see them in the morning, but my understanding is at 5 a.m. they're hanging out at the
Yeah.
pond. So I mean, I do see them in the evenings quite often.
Mhm.
They just come for a drink and wade in the pond and then wander off and go in directions I wouldn't expect because most of my land is off that away. And behind the dam, you can cross the road and there's nothing over there. But they go the other way sometimes, and sometimes they cross the street and the street over here. And I know there is a guy has a deer blind a mile from my house, maybe, because Kira's husband went shooting up there a few times. So he's like, "I passed your house." I'm like, "Oh, you did?" He's like, "Yeah, I think it's actually maybe it's one turn off this road up a ways, and then he's got a deer blind. But there's 100 acres or something like that, a mile from here too. So there's large tracts of empty land still. Like I do live in the woods. I think 5 miles away is a mall, and I have a Chipotle and Walmart and all that. But I'm just on the other side of that line. The bridge of civilization is an interesting phenomenon. It'll be great. Yeah, I don't know if you can. I mean, you're welcome to shoot anything you want if you have weapons and you're here, but I don't know how that'll work out.
I well, you don't hunt in January, so it's kind
No,
of
you
a
can't. I don't know when hunting season is.
right now, basically everywhere. Because you don't want to go hunting when you've got fawns running around that are dependent on their mothers. You want to they need to be able to live. They need to be old enough to live on their own. So it's usually right around this time. That's the thing. Sam, I can see you in the lobby, and if you turn your webcam on, I can let you in there. So. All right, you're just kind of talking into a muted microphone there, so
Uh-oh.
on. I'm going to turn it off. But I am here. I'm going to turn my cam off. I don't want my webcam to be on. Okay.
okay, all right. I just know you're a human being now.
I'm a guy. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Oh,
We like humans. Persons.
Yeah.
Persons, I think, is a better term.
Ooh,
sure,
persons.
sure. Yeah.
What's the big difference, Mark? Between a human and a person?
Well, a human is more of a scientific designation, right? And a person is more of a designation about this idea of connectedness and intimacy that I've been trying to peddle on everybody who will listen. And the intimacy crisis video that I did with Catherine is still getting views. It's getting like 9 views every couple of days. It's been great. I'm up to like 265 views in that video. It's a really good one. The one I did with Andrew with the bangs is good too. But yeah, because you want to make a distinction between a human, an individual, which I don't think exists, and a person, because that seems to be important for people in terms of getting them to understand that that the world is enchanted, right? That you can't just be an objective material reality and observe the world that way. And so I saw what I did. I've been trying to do this for a year, for at least a year, I think. Jonathan Peugeot put out a video a while back about the symbolism of the Matrix and what's the through line of the symbolism, right? He wasn't going through all the pieces. That's impossible. And I watched it and I was like, I'm a huge Matrix fan, huge. I own it, right? I've been watching it and watching it. I've probably watched it at least 100 times. And he talks about this through line, and I was like, I didn't see that. I didn't see these things. What's going on? So then I watched it again, his video again, and I'm like, I don't get it. I've got to figure this out. So I watched it again, and then I was like, oh, I think I see it all. And then I watched the movie again, and I was like, oh yeah. But then I found a bunch of new stuff, and I was like, oh wow, look at all these contradictions in here. And one of them is, which I never noticed before. Effectively, one of the messages of the movie is, I'd rather live in a burnt out, mostly dead world with one city near the core of the earth where life is just grimy and difficult and ugly and you're constantly being hunted, so that I can be an individual rather than be part of the system with all the beauty and the stakes and the niceness. And I was like, oh, it's really overt. Like, it's really like that's the socialist utopia too, right? Well, we'd all rather live with bread lines than have that dreaded capitalism. And it was just like, oh, I don't know how I missed this. This is so clear too. It was just, all the flip, because there's a bunch of flipping in there. He talks about it with like Alice in Wonderland. That's the dream world. Like, but then you refer to the Matrix as the dream world. And yet, right? And it's like, oh, what is going on? So all the references are, or a bunch of the references are backwards in the movie. And I was like, yeah, I can see it now. This is really interesting. And I was gonna do a video. I decided to try and fix something, and of course I broke it in the process. I was going to do a video on my personal channel, which only has one video now, about sort of the trends in movies and what we're seeing, because the individualism, that whole thing is playing out in different ways, and that sharp line of, and that was the other thing, like, because I've noticed it now, I didn't notice it when I first saw The Matrix. It's a sharp line, right? You're either in the gritty, the real gritty world, or you're in the shiny, matrixy, computer world. And the first time I noticed that really was not The Matrix somehow, but Ex Machina. And like, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie Ex Machina, first of all, go see Ex Machina. It is fantastic. But almost every scene in Ex Machina is literally lab, clean, white sort of thing, or outdoors, full on outdoors. And then there's a few scenes in, I think it's called Waterfall, the house by Frank Lloyd Wright. There's a few scenes in that, but that whole house is all about that. Like, when you're in that house, you can't tell if you're outside or inside. But it's very much that. Next, you see that in Severance, the show Severance, which is on Apple TV, right? Everything's either outdoors in nature, in like the real world, or it's in this sterilized lab environment.
It's either
very stark thing.
tyrannical order or untamed chaos, basically.
And it's a binary. Everything's a binary, right? It's
Right.
part of that binary thinking where everything's left or right, or whatever. And I heard it. I listened to Lex Friedman did an interview with Ben Shapiro, and a few people said, no, you should listen to like the last half of it at least. And I was like, oh, I might as well listen to the whole stupid thing at that point, because it's not like I don't like Ben Shapiro or something, right? And yeah, I saw it there too. I mean, Lex is very much left, right, left, right, left, right, and Ben's very much like, well, I don't know about that, right? But that's what I find, is that people who are so-called right wing seem to oddly, while they have sharp boundaries between, we'll say, good and evil, don't have the problem of dividing people into two categories for whatever reason. But it does seem to me like pretty much everybody on the left does have that problem, which is
Right. So it's
the difference that I see.
It's the world upside down, because usually, like, the left would be the ones who would be distrusting institutions and questioning everything, but now it's the world's upside down. Like, the conservatives are the one who are questioning institutions. So yeah, it's just strange days. It's the end of the liturgical year over here in Catholic land, and our readings are getting nice and apocalyptic. So got to preach on the end of the world tonight.
Cool. But how does that work? What do you mean the liturgical year? How is that different from, say, the regular year?
4 Sundays before Christmas, it's the season of Advent. And the season of Advent is always the beginning of the liturgical year. And so since we're like 6 Sundays from Advent, it's near the end of the liturgical year. So the last Sunday of the liturgical year is always the Feast of Christ the King.
I see.
Yeah.
And then you preach on the end of the world, so that you
a little bit. Yeah. But it wasn't this. I could go over the homily I gave, but yeah. I was talking about, famines and plagues and wars, and I'm like, oh boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it, everybody?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was interesting because they were talking a little bit about Ukraine, and actually Shapiro had a great take on Ukraine. I mean, I disagree with all of his framing, but his solution was pretty dead on. I mean, it was really cool.
What was the solution again?
Basically, his solution was Ukraine's trapped, right? Zelensky's trapped. The U.S. has to be the bad guy and take the hit and withdraw support in order to force Ukraine to negotiate and give up Crimea and Donetsk and Luhansk, which was inevitable. Like, it's not, they just have to give it up.
Ukraine just doesn't have the manpower to drive the Russians out.
Well, that's a different issue. I mean, the problem is the people there are Russians and they don't want to be part of Ukraine. And nobody wants to admit that, but See, the thing that people don't understand is the war began in 2014 and never ended. And,
Mhm.
and they're not understanding that, right? And you can say, no, it was all one country. Okay, but how many countries have rockets being fired from two of their sub areas, states, whatever you want to call them, into the rest of the country? Okay, zero. That's how many. So if zero countries have that property in common and it's a violent property, and Ukraine since 2014 has had missiles coming in from those areas, you can say, oh, it's Russia all along, but I don't think so. Like, I don't think that's a healthy way to think about the situation. I think they were unhappy and they don't want to be part of Ukraine, and you trying to force them to be is not going to work, and to stop doing that. Like,
Mhm.
but once you understand it that way, and I mean, I did a video on Ukraine, of course, on navigating patterns, that excellent YouTube channel that everybody should be subscribed to by now, on
Mhm.
Ukraine. And I think, yes, we want you to hit the subscribe button on navigating patterns.
Smash
But-
that subscribe button.
Exactly. Smash the like, hit the subscribe. But I think it's more about identity as such. Like, people want to be able to self-identify, like self-identification as a spirit in the world is what's driving that war, because they want to believe they're a country, and there's a lot of evidence that they were never a country. Like, there's just a ton of evidence that says there was no such country as Ukraine, and the only time it's been united under an empire, and it can't stay united without having something over it, right? So it can be a region within an empire and managed, carefully enough. But that's the issue.
Yeah. And I think, I was thinking about this when I was sitting out in the deer stand, is that it's impossible to actually build a perfect system. And when people get into a position of power and try and do that, that's where like 80% of the problems come from.
Yep.
Trying to build this perfect system, but it's like you're never going to be able to have a system that can't be gamed, right? That's not going to have some kind of flaw that somebody could exploit.
Right. Well, all systems have flaws, but I think the bigger problem is that we have this misconception because we don't understand another one of Vervaeke's great points about distributed cognition. Like, if distributed cognition is a real thing in the world, and I suppose somebody could argue that it's not. I'd like to see them try. I'd like to argue with them so that I can beat them with their ignorance, because I do rather enjoy that. But that means that the sum total of people using Google is always going to outsmart any number of Google engineers designing an algorithm. Like, that's what it means. And then it also means that on the global scale, like, any government is going to be outsmarted by the people in the government. Like, it's if distributed cognition is a real concept, that has to be a result of it. And so even if you could build a perfect system, you have to live with the fact that somebody will outsmart it, because the intelligence of the people using it is always going to be greater than the intelligence of the people building it. It's just inevitable, right? It's something we have to learn to live with. It's a perennial problem if you want to sneak in some fancy Vervaeke language there, right? It's just something you're not getting around. And I think that's really important, because I see all the failures of people to understand the world, people like Lex Friedman, who I really enjoy and admire. But
he's a great interviewer, and he really honors his guests well.
Right, but he doesn't understand scale. And to me, being in computers, that's weird, because the computer systems run into scaling problems constantly. And I think that unless you're a systems engineer, like if you're just a software engineer and you haven't really written things that, have had to operate at different scales, you don't appreciate scale at all. And you probably don't, like, if you haven't read Nassim Taleb at all, then you don't understand that even math doesn't scale. Like, actual mathematics doesn't scale. And so, like, the rules of math change when the sets of numbers get larger. Sorry, the rules of math change. They actually change. And Taleb's got some great MOOCs on this on his YouTube channel, actually, that are very short. And even for math retards like myself, and boy, do I not do math, it's very easy to understand. And he uses a whiteboard, and he really shows you this stuff. But one of the findings, it's probably 5 years old or 6 years old now, is that if you get a large enough set of numbers, and now we're talking a very large set of numbers, randomness vanishes. Like, the randomness that we know about, that is random, as measured as randomness at all other scales, vanishes, and randomness creates random order. effectively. So order emerges from randomness in a large enough set. And like, it's hard to understand, right? But it's a scaling issue, right? It's just a scaling. And like, if you have a small enough set, randomness can't exist. It's like, right? Because if it's a binary, there's no way to make a random binary. That doesn't work, right? It doesn't make any sense. And so there's no randomness here at the bottom, and there's no randomness here at the top, and I don't know where the cutoffs are. I don't care, right? And there's lots of randomness in the middle, and all that's determined by scale, and all that scale is determined by how big your set is, and it's like, wait, what? And that's the whole thing. And people don't appreciate that fact. We're not living in a world where you can have universal rules at all scales, which is not to say there aren't universal patterns. There are, but they're not rules. But they are constraints. And we don't like that. We want the constraints that we can know and we can understand. This is what I was saying earlier about knowledge and participation. Like, we just want to know the constraints. It's like, no, you can just accept them. You can say, there are constraints which I do not understand, and I will just live within them. And a lot of, say, church attendance is about that level of submission. I'm just going to submit to the fact that I'm a moron and that I can't resolve ethics by myself because I'm too stupid, right? And I believe that's true for every human and every human that ever will be. I don't even think that, again, it's a distributed cognition problem, right? That elephant's too big. You're not figuring it out by yourself. And then now I have to rely on others, and I know others are unreliable. And it was another thing that Ben Shapiro was talking about. Sometimes your friends' criticisms are actually wrong, but you still have to take them seriously, and then you don't know if they're right. You don't get around those kinds of problems. And so your submission to something like the church is flawed because it's made up of flawed people.
The church is a big enough set such that over time the patterns emerge.
Exactly. Well, and it does fix itself better than an individualistic system that is too, hyper change. So, for example, let's suppose you embarked on some crazy theory about digital money where you could just use cryptographic hashes to represent value, with no connection to anything else, we'll say.
Well, you connect it to electricity use.
What? Right. Exactly. Ooh, someone's watching my videos, Father Eric. Someone.
Excellent YouTube channel, Navigating Patterns.
It is. It really is. It tells you all about money and economy and capitalism now with psychic space dragons. So nothing's better than Sally Joe's psychic space dragons. But you got to check those out on Navigating Patterns. So, when you realize that, when you actually realize that, then all of a sudden a bunch of stuff changes, right? And what changes is that the crypto thing goes for a long time because you get high enough adoption and a high enough interest, and you suck in enough money from, we'll say, a better monetary system. Oh, it's a fiat currency. It's no good. All currencies fiat, all of it, right? And then all of a sudden it collapses. It just takes a long time. And so it was easier to get that to work because too many people didn't understand what was going on, and they weren't actually cooperating in a structure, right? They were just cooperating with a system, with a cryptographic mapping system, roughly speaking, or a ledger, right? So they've got a ledger, and they're just cooperating with a ledger, and there's really no rules on how to cooperate with a ledger. You do lots of things with a ledger. A lot of things with a ledger. Just study some basic accounting, or go look at the 2008 financial crisis or any other collapse. Things look great on the ledger. The ledger's full of lies because it doesn't record what you need to know. It records some of the things you need to know, but it doesn't record all of the things you need to know. Right? So then it collapses, and that's what you see in the crypto completely. And this guy who ran FTX, he was using the billions of dollars he had in the company to save other crypto exchanges, to seem all altruistic. And now it comes out he had a backdoor into the system all along, and he stole all the money. And the last time I checked, he was on his way to Argentina or something. I'm like, oh, good for him. Good for him.
One of those non-extradition countries.
Or you can look at something else that's very similar. That's kind of shocking. So that apparently Amazon, the company Amazon, lost $1 trillion of market value. $1 trillion of market value. They went from 1.8 trillion to 0.8 trillion. Like, it's all gone. And that is, because they're not able to make the delivery business work. Like, the core business that everybody knows them for, it's never really been I think it was profitable 3 or 4 quarters, not consecutive quarters either. But I think it was profitable 3 or 4 quarters. And it's not profitable coming out of COVID.
Uh-oh.
It's not profitable coming out of COVID. And they lost a ridiculous amount of money last quarter, like an insane amount. And so I think
just the shipping division and everything else is keeping it afloat, or is everything losing money?
No. They only have one profitable division, which is AWS. It's cloud compute.
Yeah.
That cloud computing is their only profit. Now, the profit margin on that is huge. I can tell you, as an expert in the field, who's actually an expert in the field with decades of experience, it is 5 times cheaper to build your own data centers than it is to use Amazon. The counter to that is, well, they have this neat software. Yeah, but it's all open source and you can implement it all yourself. And I'm not suggesting anybody do that. And I'm not saying that makes sense.
Because you need to have the skills to actually operate it.
Yeah. I mean, I've built clouds, I scoff at all the open source. I'm happy to use any of it. I don't care. But all the tools that Amazon has, I've either been on projects or built them myself by myself. They're not all that mad. You don't need to be a good software engineer, because I'm not a great software engineer, right? You don't even need to be a good software engineer to build those tools. Really, you really don't. And even the really sophisticated ones, like they've got all these new storage mechanisms, it's key value pair stuff. It's all baby databases underneath, and actually, it's a lot of glue code and some API code that really any mid-tier software engineer could actually write. But now that everyone's seeing that the Bezos dream that he sold everybody for 20 years, and if you don't believe me, read the quarterly reports. They've got them all there. Bezos is telling his investors, I know we're losing money, but we're dumping more money into R&D. And then when we own the retail market, we'll be able to own all these other markets. It's like, yeah, but you're never going to own the retail market, buddy. It's not going to happen. And your assumption about when you own the retail market is also all wrong. It's just based on a misunderstanding of how people work in the world, because it turns out that most people like to be around other people. And sales is more effective in person, even if it's not person to person. In other words, it's more effective for you to sell, say, extra product that people don't know they want by having them come into a store than it is by flashing it on their screen, right? Why? Because they have a participatory investment in 3D space that is greater than their participatory investment in 2D space on a screen. And I sort of touched on this on the live stream a couple of days ago.
You mean not just cost effective, but like everything as a cohesive whole, it's a better business model for not just them, but it like scales better, basically, right?
Right. It scales better, but also it enables something that is not enabled as easily on Amazon, right? And there's problems with doing this on Amazon. So there's the concept in retail of a loss leader, and a loss leader works by dragging you into the store and giving you a product that they are losing money when you buy. Like, this is a thing businesses, like, everybody's like, business is only about profit. I'm like, you've never worked at a business and taken a look, because businesses do unprofitable things.
They sell the $100 TV that they're buying for $120.
Yep.
And they get you to buy a whole bunch of other stuff there for a profit.
They get you to walk through the store and realize that there are other things that you want. Now, what happens is we live in this world of the internet where we look at outliers and we believe those outliers are normal. So outlier behavior has been normalized, right? How many people do you know that are in love with and married an elephant? Probably zero, right? But I guarantee you there's at least 2 of them somewhere on the internet that you could run into, right? Like, it's inevitable. Right. So that's a problem, because normally you would never see that. It would never occur to you that that is a thing in the world. Right. But I've just infected you with it. I apologize. But the internet does that. So So the crazy people, and there are a few of them out there, and I know them, and I was one of them a long time ago, who believe efficiency is the most important thing, for example, are like, no, being able to buy from Amazon's great, and they have loss leaders. Well, yeah, but the loss leaders don't. If I go and shop for something in a particular store because they have a loss leader thing, the thing that Amazon flashes is not their moneymaker. It could be anybody's. So that system of loss leader doesn't work the same way online. But I made this argument, like I said the other day, right? Like there's a fundamental difference in the amount of beauty something like Lord of the Rings can have versus a cathedral, because you can go stand in the cathedral, walk around the cathedral, walk in the cathedral, and feel things while you're in the cathedral, and then take that information out into the real world. And I'm not saying that Lord of the Rings movie is not beautiful. I own it. I love it. I've watched it multiple times. I actually did a 12-hour marathon on the extended edition. I blew a Sunday. I completely destroyed a Sunday. It was just me and the dog. Took the dog out, and other than that, I just sat in front of the TV and immersed myself in the world, like completely, because I do crazy things like that occasionally. Not very often, though. Not very often, but I do those things. That is a different experience from walking around cathedrals, which I have been to. It's just not. They're not comparable, and I'm not saying one's better than the other, but they are different, and the difference is palpable. And look, go walk around Edinburgh, Scotland, which I've done. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're not going to get any of that on a screen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to. Even just like, you could do the 360 view thing, but the experience of actually being there, and then there's a volcano over here, and there's a castle, at the edge of a hill over here, and there's the ocean in back of you, and there's all these beautiful buildings like everywhere you look. I mean, you can't, and you're outside, and you're walking, and you're interacting, and there's weather, and of course the weather there of any given type lasts maybe 10 minutes if you're lucky, and then it actually changes. Like and until you actually experience that, and you take the train to Inverness from Edinburgh, and you see 9 rainbows. Okay. You can look at 36,000 rainbows on your computer
on the internet,
screen in 5 minutes,
but they don't have the frame. They don't have the context. Context is really important, and they don't have the depth.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that people aren't getting, right? We've collapsed meaning into words, into propositions. And I have a great video on navigating patterns about this, right? Words don't contain meaning. Meaning is not in words. It's not there. You can't get it from the word. You can't even get it from a group of words. Meaning comes from content, which is definition in language, plus context, which could be lots of things. It's not just the words around the word. It's not just the sentences. It could be the cultural context. It could be the time of day.
It could be the context of an inside joke between teenagers. And if you're not on the inside of that joke, then nothing actually makes sense. It's like, hey, on a ladder, right? Yeah, and everybody starts laughing. And it's like, on a ladder?
Right. And the easiest example of this is that you can actually flip the meaning of any word or sentence or phrase with your tone. That's what sarcasm is.
I don't believe you.
Exactly. But like, sarcasm is literally a tonal change to flip the meaning or change the meaning.
I've always thought that the internet needs to adopt Comic Sans font as the universal sarcasm font, because anything written in that I can't take seriously.
I agree. That is a good strategy. We should start an internet.
Somebody get a hold of Elon Musk. He can do that on Twitter now, and they're a big enough force to change it for everybody.
Right, and I think that's why you see sort of the degradation down to Twitter, Facebook, those things, and then the re-enchantment of something like Clubhouse, which lasted for a while. I mean, it's still around, but my goodness, is it not the same place? And I still use it. I use it probably every day, pretty much. I'm on Clubhouse, but mostly to talk to a group of friends, because most of the good rooms are gone. And most of the good people are gone. Like Lex Friedman still pops in every once in a while, but like, he's be on there all the time. So, and lots of people are on there all the time. Greg Ellis, I met Greg Ellis on there. He's an interesting guy. He has the Respondent That's his book. Excellent book. Everybody should read that book and be terrified and realize how terrifying our justice system is, right? And you know, the Weinsteins used to be on there all the time, right? All these celebrities used to be on there all the time, and most of that's gone. Like it's really kind of gone, which is sad. But the reason why Clubhouse is big is because now you have tone, and you can have real-time conversations, and it's interactive. Right? Facebook's not interactive in quite the same way, and so it's, you know, in the stream the other day, you know, weird that you would equate a 2-dimensional projection on a screen to a 3-dimensional object, not on, like, that's outside. I don't, but that's part of the malaise and the confusion we're suffering from, is this reduce down, reduce down, reduce down. And I think that's where you get identity politics from. Again, you're trying to reduce everything so you know how to handle people. Like, oh, look at this guy, he's got a collar on, I know how to deal with him. Like, I know everything about him now. You know, I mean, those priests, man, it's not like they're going to buy you pizza at Thunder Bay or anything.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. We just expect other people to pay for us.
Yeah, you can tell I'm still grateful, Father. I still talk about it. I'm like, yeah, that Sevilla brought me tea. She went, would you like some tea? And I was like, I would really like some tea. Yes. And she just went and brought me tea. And I was just like, this is the best place on the planet. This is wonderful. Because when I'm at home, I forget my own damn time. Get up, boil water, wait for it to boil, pour the tea, wait for it to steep. And nope, tea just comes to me magically. I'm like, this is living my best life.
All right. Yeah. Thunder Bay forever, right?
Free pizza, living my best life. Yeah, Thunder Bay forever. Exactly.
Oh man. I just knew I didn't have to drive quite as far as you did, and gas prices were ish.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Just across North Dakota or Minnesota, Little John.
Little John, yeah.
Through the trees.
I want to get back to Minneapolis now because it's an amazing little place. Like, I was just blown away by Minneapolis. Actually, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. It's like a little.
It is a fun little town.
No, Richard's here. Uh-oh.
Is he procrastinating from another school project he should be attending to?
See, this is why no one likes Catholics, Father Eric. This is why no one likes Catholics. That Catholic guilt.
But you have responsibilities, young man.
Of course.
Forgive us for building civilization, Mark. Forgive us, please.
Enforcing civilization. Yes.
Oh, I
chopped
just got
that damn tree down.
Father Eric, what is the process of catechesis for an adult convert? The process is this book right here.
Catechesis.
I'm just kidding.
Catholic Church.
Yeah. Basically, what you do is you find a Catholic church and you talk to a priest there. And hopefully, if they're not ridiculous, they'll help you. I mean, like I could go through a whole lot of detail about how we do it here, but the Catholic Church is so big that it's going to be just different enough everywhere that you're going to get different answers depending on where you're at. So the easiest thing for me to just say is go find a Catholic church, get in front of a priest and ask him how it works, and that's the easiest way of walking through it. So we started our classes in September. Trying to get people's names and stories down, but there's a lot of them, which is great, but harder to build those relationships there. And most of them will probably bring it in Easter, and there's some of them that we got some things we got to sort out, and coming in at Easter isn't just going to be possible. So, but yeah, most places, the most common thing you'll see is they'll start their classes with the academic year. And if you're ready to go by Easter and there's nothing standing in your way, then we bring you in on Easter. So sort out. Yeah, the most common thing. Well, I'm going to answer Ethan's question first. Sort out is usually some kind of a marriage thing. Catholics have all these different rules about marriage and divorce and remarriage and those sorts of things. So we want to make sure we're bringing people in under good circumstances. So we got to figure those things out usually before we bring them in. Mark, you were asking a question?
Yeah, how long does it take to catechize, whatever that disease name was? I forget.
Yeah, catechize. So it really depends. I had a nice Lutheran lady that I brought in like 3 months because the COVID lockdowns came. So this is what happened: is that her Lutheran church started modernizing. Right, they took out the pews and they put in chairs.
Wow.
They put a coffee bar in the back. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Right.
no.
And that was her
Nice.
reaction too, right? And
Yeah.
this just kind of hurt because she was one of those absolutely wonderful church ladies that just did a ton and felt her church leaving her. But she
Mm.
was just going to kind of stick it out because that was her home until the COVID lockdowns came. And what we did in Wahpeton is we just started broadcasting our services, and her Lutheran church wasn't. And
Wow.
when she saw the way we did liturgy, she was just like, "This is kind of the liturgy that I remember and that I love." And so we would meet and we'd talk about things and go over things. And she had Catholic friends that she was talking to, like nice, well-educated Catholic friends. And they were making the so it was all relationships, And so by the time I meet her, I'm like, you're basically ready. And I didn't have a class that I was going through with, so I'm like, I don't know. It was probably 5 or 6 months, and I'm like, you're ready to go. Let's set a date and just get this done.
Yeah.
What are the minimum requirements then? I mean, so you can't just matrix download the Catholic program, which is kind of too bad. Like, religion, Catholicism, go. And you can't
Download.
get it from a book because it's not propositional or entirely propositional, I guess.
What do you mean you can't get it from a book?
You can get a lot from the book.
Just read this. Just read this whole thing, and then you're good to go.
I'm not reading that ever.
That's
Not
what I
out.
thought. Yeah. So it really it depends. It depends. Some people, if they've already got it, So like the really important stuff. This lady in her 70s, she had already had it figured out, right? Getting to church on Sunday is important. That wasn't going to be something she was going to miss. Living a good Christian life, she had already done that mostly. Most of the things that people might get upset about with the Catholic Church, she was already on board with. So it's like,
Well, the Lutherans aren't that far from the Catholics, right? It's like the Anglicans aren't that far from the Catholics. It's just not that far.
yeah.
But
yeah.
how do you know when to kneel and this? That it's all confusing.
You
can't
sit
even
near the
tell
back.
what's going
You
on.
sit near the back.
You can just go to mass. You don't.
Yeah.
You can
Oh,
just
no, I
walk
go to
in.
mass. I go to mass with my
Yeah, you can just go to mass.
Yeah. So anyway, you
Folks
just kind of sit near
sit-
the back until you feel comfortable with all the standing
They
and the sitting. And the,
kneel. They all know what to say in response. I'm like,
So
how the hell do you learn all this?
here's been the nice part about the Orthodox Church. They have a whole pamphlet for you.
I could get you
And
one of those pamphlets.
They even have the because a lot of it is sung, right? And they have like the medieval Gregorian chant bar thing, and like you can learn to read the music and learn how to sing along and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Not the Orthodox Church down here, or at least the one that I sometimes attend. The Catholic
you know-
Church is that, but like I said, there's all this stuff where there's speak and respond. That's not in the pamphlets in the churches I've been in.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
because Paul Vandercoy was talking about how for some people like me who are interested in Orthodoxy, if you don't get lucky with your parish, then you're just in deep waters, right? But like I'm in LA, there's a lot of young men in LA who are interested in Orthodoxy. There's probably what, 8, 9 men in the parish from 18 to 25 who are either in the process of catechesis or have recently finished catechesis, and so they're really they're on the ball in terms of that. I just learned today actually that the parish about 25 years ago, it used to be an Anglican church, and then the whole congregation converted to Orthodoxy.
Ooh.
And so,
So
Wow.
do you know what
I-
liturgy they use?
yes, it's let me say the rite of Saint Gregory is actually
Nice.
it's a Western rite. Church,
Yeah, Western
Father.
Rite Orthodoxy. You don't see a
So-
whole lot of that.
No, I heard 1% is the statistic.
Interesting.
So-
I would be so jazzed to attend one of their liturgies.
Oh,
I'd just be,
it's
I'd be
so
my eyes,
awesome.
my eyes would be like this. I'd just be looking at everything, you know.
Yeah, you'll have to come down to LA. Oh, where are you from, Father?
North Dakota, up in
Okay.
Fargo.
Up there.
Yeah, it's
you'll
pretty
have-
cold out there right now. LA sounds pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, it's surprisingly cold here.
I'm sure I would get used to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we have the 6-part Latin Mass. Some of it's in Latin, some of it's in English. The Kyrie's in Latin, which is fun. And so yeah, it's a great liturgy. Not too long either. It's funny because I got recommended a parish by Jonathan Dunk. And I went there the first Sunday I got here. And I went with my dad. And it was a very ethnic congregation. It was still welcoming, but very ethnic and huge church. And by the 2.5-hour mark, my dad, who isn't officially a Christian, but he's pretty close, he whispered into my ear and said, "Patrick, I think this is too long." And we had a nice conversation about priorities, and I don't know whether I still agree with him or not, but he thought I should find another church. And it was pretty far away from campus anyway, and St. Michael's, the one I'm attending now, is only 20 minutes away, so it worked out. And there's quite a few students from Biola there. And actually, it's very tied to Biola. If you look up Biola and Orthodoxy, the former dean of student life went to St. Michael's. The co-founder of the Honors College went to St. Michael's. Quite a few Biola alumni there, so it's interesting.
Yeah, good. Well, I hope it works out.
Me too. I'm actually I'm not about to start catechesis, but I emailed the father 2 or 3 days ago and said, I'm ready to board the ark, as it were.
Good
and
stuff.
Stop mucking about. So, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Renee Johns Milchman. I have no idea if I pronounced that how you would like. I haven't got the confirmation. Is it possible to get it through the internet? Absolutely not. No such thing as a virtual sacrament.
Yeah, but the 2D is so rich and deep, and the experience is just the same.
What about
All right,
in the
come over here, Mark.
metaverse?
Let me put some oil on your forehead.
Yes, that would be great.
What about the metaverse?
Sad. Nowadays, I'm too lazy to go to church, he says. For the kingdom of heaven is taken by force, and the violent bear it away. So there you go. Yeah, Jesus said that. I don't know what he really means.
Well, the meaning is part of the context. You didn't give any context, just a little bit of content.
You're right. You're right. I'm supposed to be able to provide that, aren't I?
Yeah. Or else. I don't know. Did you guys hear Mathieu Peugeot on Dan Servan?
Oh, no. I
Really?
saw
Out
it.
in the woods wearing his
Is it
beanie.
worth?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, boy, is it worth it? Yeah. I was like, whoa, there's some nuggets
Really?
in here for sure. Yeah.
Mark, in your opinion, is it worthwhile to read Matthew Peugeot's book?
Language of
I know-
creation?
Yeah.
What do you mean worthwhile? You mean required by all humans? If you mean required by all
Wow.
humans, I would say yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Much
okay.
like
Wow.
Taleb, like everyone
Okay.
needs to read all of Taleb's books. Language of creation is a must read, and it's
Okay.
not even a read, like, because there's a lot of images. And he said this in his Peterson interview. He
Yeah.
said, Peterson goes and quotes a bunch of it. He goes, "Oh, now I realize why I put diagrams in there, because it doesn't make any sense when you just talk about it." It's like, yeah,
Well,
it does.
and so I watched like the first 2 minutes of that video, and it was interesting how he said, like, these categories are so fundamental that you can't really use words to
Yes.
describe them, so you have
Right.
to use diagrams. Right?
Right. That was one of the things. Yeah. And I think people get really confused. I mean, everybody's been listening to Noam Chomsky far too long. I suggest just ditching Noam Chomsky
I had
entirely.
never
And-
listened to Noam Chomsky. I've
Well,
gotten
neither.
So,
No, but,
I've
no,
gotten
but you
so
have.
many recommendations.
No,
I
but you
probably
have,
had
because
secondhand.
everybody believes that
Secondhand.
thought and language are the same thing, which is Noam Chomsky's big obvious mistake, right? I'm like, oh, well, so babies can't think because they don't have language. So giving them language makes them think. Like, what do you kick it down that road? It's too dumb. Humans weren't human. Like, animals don't think. Like, where are you going? But
I'll
I mean,
probably read him at some point.
that's part of the great confusion, is that we have emotions and they're part of thoughts, right? They're types of thoughts, and there's a conflict there, right? And we can train that. It's part of rationality, is training. Like, that's Stoicism, really, training yourself so that when emotions happen, you don't just react right away, unless it's appropriate, right? You kind of mitigate that, especially in the modern world, where we're not being stalked by tigers constantly, or eaten by dragons, or whatever. And when we oversimplify, or we try to look at our thoughts, we go, well, when I interrogate my thoughts, I use language. But there are these fundamental ways to understand things, right? And usually we call it common sense. Like, we go, why did you do that? You wouldn't do that. It's just common sense that you wouldn't do that. And then I always challenge people, what makes it common sense? And I think what makes people say common sense is that it's something that they know so well that they've never articulated it. Like, they literally don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the language of creation was a book that's trying its best to make all of your implicit categories explicit, and in order to bridge that gap, it just had to use diagrams. Like, there was
Well,
just no other way to do it.
I don't even think they're implicit. I think that's part of the problem, actually, of you religious people. You guys keep assuming there are implicit things that aren't there, right? It's weird, the number of people that, like Father Mackenzie. He's got a YouTube channel. I commented on that. He's talking about everything as, as though everybody assumes Platonism, because Platonism is implicit in a lot of thought. Like, it's kind of there, right? Like, ontology itself requires Platonism. Like, if you try to do ontology without understanding Platonic forms, it doesn't work. Actually,
At the very
you can't.
best, you'll just accidentally reinvent Plato.
Well, that's
see-
what they do. That's what they do, because that's what that's what ends up happening. That's what happened on the ontology clubhouse room. Like they just keep running into Plato. And I'm like, guys, Plato already wrote about this. So when you say these are implicit assumptions about things like male and female, which is in language of creation, this is the argument we're having, is that no, that's not an implicit assumption. We have people denying that reality, actually. And if you want to cast reality as objective, I would say reality, a reasonable short form definition of reality might be that which objects.
That which I can't change based on my imagination.
Well, more than that, it just objects. And what does it object to? It may object to itself, right? It may be, there may be two competing forces in reality, right? And when they're not at odds with one another, it's fine. That might be immovable object meets unstoppable force. That may be what was being talked about there, right? Like there are contentions within reality. It's not one smooth system that with no conflicts, right? So that which objects to A, what's in your head, B, what conceptions you come up with and how you operate with them, it doesn't object right away. Like that seems to be the complaint. Like crypto doesn't collapse immediately because it's a stupid idea. And it's not an entirely stupid idea. Bitcoin, for example, has some very good uses. It's just not going to replace transactions on a day-to-day basis because it's mathematically impossible. And anybody who looked at it would know that right away, unless they didn't understand what was going on. And very smart people who understand all the math didn't understand that, right? So you run into these problems where people will play these games that are objected to by reality for a very long time before it all comes crashing down on them.
Yeah, and then with the gender thing, I was listening to a Benjamin Boyce video today, and he stated quite strongly that we're going to see so many people detransitioning in the next 10 years or so that it will not be possible to deny their existence. And that's simply evidence that you can't deny the male female.
You can't,
you think
you can't deny it already, and they are. Because you can act as if anything is true. This is the problem. Like people always assume, like the scientists always assume, well, you can't act as if objective material reality isn't true. Well, A, it isn't. Well, and B, you can act as if anything isn't true. People do it all the time. What are you talking about?
But I think more people will see it because he did concede that, the people writing stupid articles today are still going to be writing stupid articles in 10 years. And
when you own that idea, when that idea is your baby, and it probably is, you're not giving it up. You're going to defend it no matter what, and you're going to sacrifice yourself and your sanity and your money and your life and your reputation to save it, even if it's not real. And that's what we're going to see. And so, the people that believe rationality is going to save us all because rationality holds the world together are just wrong. They're going to continue to be wrong. And that's going to create more chaos because what we need is not an acceptance of rationality. We need an acceptance of submission because we're all Muppets. Like we don't know anything about the world. Wisdom to some extent is knowing what little you know and knowing how little that is. Because we just don't know that much.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with implicit assumptions. Like everybody thinks that, and I think that's why, like, look, you couldn't publish Language of Creation in the Middle Ages. You'd be like, what is this? We know this. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you write this down? Right? But those implicit assumptions are gone. I think that's really what the problem is. And everybody goes, well, those implicit assumptions couldn't be gone because they're at the base of reality. They're at the base of that which objects, but they're acting as if it's not. And so you have this dichotomy between, well, how long can you ignore that which objects to you? Well, it turns out a long time, generations and generations in some cases.
Well, in some ways, we always do that forever, right?
Well, we do that with some things to some extent. Actually, when we're acting And this is the cooperation problem. If we don't all have the same aim or a similar enough aim, then we're going to just spread chaos everywhere. And that's what you see. Like, we can't accept, our commonality, our common aims, and then accept the conflict that comes from trying to cooperate, to manifest them. And then we don't cooperate anymore. And now we're just fighting all the time because you don't have cooperation or the ability to cooperate. That's what happens. And, that was the problem. I was having Father Mackenzie on his YouTube channel. I'm like, no, you're not getting it. You're assuming everybody has read Plato, and almost nobody has read Plato.
Well,
So they don't understand the concept.
Well, Mark, you were talking about understanding the concept of the form, and I've read 3 works of Plato now, and I still do not understand the concept of the form, mostly because my honors college is weird and just tells you to read the book, and then you discuss it with people, and then you don't really learn the concepts explicitly because they want you to build the skill of interpretation instead of getting the ideas out. But it's I'd like to be able to articulate what a form is by this point.
Right. So that's that education, right, at that point. Right, because it's postmodern.
Well,
it's like, we're gonna help you. We're gonna help you learn to contextualize by yourself. No, you're not. That's never gonna happen. All you're gonna do is screw people up because they're gonna get solipsistic. That's literally solipsism.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point. I'll have to talk with a professor about that point.
Stop using solipsism as a way to be lazy about teaching. Teaching is hard and it's full of conflict, and you have to resolve it by having a telos and actually trying to get people to conform to that. Like, it is what it is, and that means you have to have discussions in class about what you read, so that all the varying perspectives get together and enriches everybody else's perspective. Because that's the power of community.
Yes. So, Mark, that is what we're doing. So let me explain the layout of the program. So you read a book before your session, and your session is you are put in a group of 15 students at the beginning of your 4 years. You stay with those people for 4 years. You come into your session, and there's a professor there, and they propose an opening question about the book, and then that kicks off the discussion, and the professor guides an exploration of the book that you read, right? And so we are pushing back on each other and trying to buttress each other's points and getting community.
But the problem with that is that leads to this is the internet. This is the problem with everybody complains about the internet. That is the problem with the internet. That's actually the problem with the internet. Is that people believe that, they believe that steel manning is a thing, and that it's always good, right? And that it solves a problem, and none of those assumptions are correct, and they're provably incorrect. Like, it takes 10 seconds to just prove all 3 of those assumptions that people make. So what you need is somebody to say, the point of this chapter, section of the book, is this. I'm not saying they can't ask open-ended questions and have you discuss them. All of that is good, right? Mm-hmm. But it's insufficient. It may be necessary. I don't even think it's necessary, but it's definitely not sufficient. What is sufficient is to say, here's one interpretation, here's another interpretation, right? Agreed upon or whatever. And here's my, as radical, crazy professor interpretation. I lean more towards this away from, right? That's what you need. You need that signpost, that, what was Vanderklay calling them, staves or something, right? You need that. I would call it a flag. You need that flag to rally around. And if what you do is you get people in a circle or a group, and let them become solipsistic together, it's no good, because they will. They'll build a solipsistic spirit with the 15 people, and they won't coalesce around the same ideas. And then, look, forms is easy. So and I can understand why, if you read whatever.
So I've read.
You wouldn't get it,
read,
but it's really easy.
Yeah, I've read Republic, Meno, and Symposium.
Okay, I don't think I've read any of those. But like I understand forms pretty well. Like forms is obvious to me. It's like a given, like duh. But because the world has two aspects, right? One is there's more than one triangle because I can draw a new triangle on the board, right? But the penalty to multiple triangle is none of them are perfect, and they can never be, ever, right? So the other realm is there's only one, right? Which sounds like a penalty, but the advantage is it's perfect.
Well, so what does perfect mean?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It doesn't matter. Point. Okay.
Right. It doesn't matter. The thing that you're trying to reproduce when you reproduce a triangle is the perfect triangle, according to Plato.
Okay.
Right. That's it. It's that simple. So, in other words, any manifestation that you're trying to replicate in the material realm, we'll call it, exists in a perfect form in the forms realm, and that's how you know how to manifest it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can never manifest it perfectly here because there's no perfection here.
Right.
Yeah. So, Mark, I might not have communicated myself very clearly when I was trying to talk about language of creation, but I think I might have a better way of talking about it now. It seems like that book is trying to explicate what proper participation is like, or like the way that the world actually coheres. It is trying to put that into words, as insane as that might be, which is why it ends up being such a, I'm sitting there reading it and I'm like, I agree with all of this, but what am I reading? So I don't know. Maybe implicit wasn't the right way to get at that, but it's some kind of knowledge that doesn't normally get put into words being put into words.
Yeah, I agree. I actually liked your formulation of implicit, and I think that's actually accurate. Is that if you don't have the set of knowledge in that book, and I'm not quite done reading it because it takes me I have to read a chapter a day. I can't go any faster. At the end of the book, beginning of the book's easier. But if you don't have that ground level knowledge, you won't understand the Bible correctly. Or you'll have a hard time understanding the Bible correctly. And it's explication of the Platonic forms represented in the Bible, roughly speaking, and I'm sure
and how things are organized.
And it's more than that. It's way more than that, right? So, reducing this book is impossible. It just can't be done. Yeah. But yeah, I think I like your formulation of implicit, and I think that's actually correct. It's just that the problem is that it's not actually implicit. It should be implicit. Let me put it this way: if you had proper participatory knowledge of the world, proper participation in the world, right? In other words, you were participatory up to whatever top level it was.
Everything was integrated.
You wouldn't need that book because it would just be obvious to you. And the reason why I'm having a problem reading is because when I read in these later chapters, especially I'm in the last third of the book or something, in the later chapters especially, I have to check it against everything in my head to make sure I haven't made a mistake. Because I if I have to guess, I'm going to say Mature's right and my models are wrong, but I have to check it all, and it takes a very long time to make sure there's no conflicts there. So I need to process that overnight typically.
That sounds very difficult and painful. I wouldn't read a book like that if I could avoid it.
Well, it's not that difficult and painful. It's just I like to be careful with the processing, and there's something actually magical or mystical about sleeping on something, right? Sleeping on decisions, sleeping on, right? It's really important to do. So I like to do that with this book because again, I want to be very careful with it.
But there's very short chapters and there's a lot of them.
Right. Well, and you're not just absorbing propositional, right? You're also absorbing the poetic because images activate your poetic knowledge system, not your propositional knowledge system. Roughly speaking, I'm butchering everything here, but it'll serve to communicate.
People who are in the conversation know what you mean. Yes.
Well, I think people out of the conversation know. Oh, there's propositional and poetic knowledge. I think I think that's almost close enough to what everybody can agree upon, which is why I don't like to complicate it by saying, oh, there's 4 Ps and they're really information. It's like, I could get into that detail, but I have a video on that on navigating patterns. You can see it there. So you don't need to hear.
All right. Well, we've been running the stream for over 2 hours now, and my red lights are showing up.
You have red lights for what?
I do. They're behind me. They're telling me to stop. Time to stop. I think I'm going to listen to those red lights. So, Mark, Richard, it's always good to see you guys.
Okay.
Just to let people know, this is being simulcast on Jacob's channel, and it's also on my channel. And if you want to continue absorbing this quality content, you're going to need to go and subscribe to my channel to be able to see it consistently, because I won't be broadcasting it on Jacob's channel anymore. I've gotten piggybacked off. He's like my little booster rocket. It's just going to be on my channel now. Is that okay, Mark? You look shocked. It's still going to be free on the internet. I
am shocked. No, that's good. That's good. I like it.
Whoops. Gosh, it's so weird how I can't chat. Oh my goodness. I don't know how to use this platform yet. Anyway.
So anyway, I will be signing
everything
off. I will be signing off, and I hope you guys all have top quality participation, and that God blesses you. Take care.
God bless,
God
Father.
bless.
Thank you.
Good night.